I did it my way. Throughout the 20th century, there were four influential artists, and these artists included Michael Jackson, who is known as the King of Pop, the young but beautiful Beatles, and Elvis Presley, who is known as the King of Rock and Roll. But would anyone want to take a guess on who that fourth spot belonged to?
Frank Sinatra.
Yes, you were all right. Now, you may know Frank Sinatra for his classiness, his ability to amaze the crowd with his phenomenal vocal range, or maybe just his hit songs. But tonight, I am going to tell you about his upbringing, and not just his influence on jazz music, but also music as a whole. Now, Francis Albert Sinatra was born on December 12, 1915 in Hoboken, New Jersey, to Natalina and Antonino Sinatra, who were your typical Italians. Now, they did not live in a very extravagant lifestyle. His mother was only a midwife, making about $50 per delivery, and his dad was a professional boxer, eventually a fireman. Now, growing up, Frank would do his homework and occasionally sit on top of a self-playing piano, occasionally for spare change. But during the Great Depression, his mother gave him plenty of money to go buy expensive clothes, which would result in him being called as the best-dressed kid in the neighborhood. Now, Frank's music interest developed at a young age, most notably during the big band period, which was the most common type of music during the 1930s and 1940s. He idolized singer Bing Crosby, who may have influenced his iconic crooning. For those who don't know, crooning is when you sing in a low and soft voice, but also in a sentimental manner. During high school, Frank had the privilege of arranging bands for school dances, but on his 47th day, he was unfortunately expelled because of general rowdiness. But this did not stop him from improving his singing ability. He would perform in social clubs, comedy clubs, and even on the radio stations for free. But in New York, he met a man named John Quinlan, and John Quinlan gave him lessons on elocution. Elocution happens to be the study of pronunciation, grammar, and tone. Even the best of the best needed help with their public speaking. Now, the interesting fact about Frank is that he never learned how to formally read music. He only learned how to read music through his ear. But in the early 30s, he joined a local singing group known as the Three Flashes, and he eventually became the lead singer, which made his group members very jealous because he was attracting all the ladies' attention. He would then join big band leader Harry James in the late 30s, but would eventually go solo in 1942. At this point, he was one of the top male singers in the Billboard and widely appealed to teenage girls. This phenomenon was known as Sinatra mania. But he was also quite the womanizer. So this is his mugshot in 1938. He was only 23 years old and he was charged with seduction and adultery. He was put on a $1,500 bond. He was eventually released though. Now, by the time the 50s and 60s came, he continued to collaborate with other iconic singers such as Nat King Cole and Dean Martin. But he was also integrating American music. He was able to use his own influence to promote African American musicians such as Harry Sweets Edison, who is a trumpet player. According to Sweets, Frank would ensure that black musicians were paid equally and treated with respect. Now, also, African-American producer Quincy Jones, who you may know as Michael Jackson's producer, stated that during their performance at Las Vegas at the Sands in 1966, the crowd was very segregated between the whites and the blacks, but what Frank was able to do was he had hired a personal bodyguard for each member of the band and gave them orders, quote unquote, to break anyone's nose that looked at them funny. Now, Frank was also very politically active. He supported Democrat Harry S. Truman and JFK, and even Republican Ronald Reagan. And on April 17th, 1973, he sang right in front of President Richard Nixon and Italian Prime Minister Giulio Andreotti. Now, if we were to talk about his inspirations in modern musicians, he inspired jazz singer Michael Bublé, country singer Willie Nelson, Stevie Wonder, and Seth MacFarlane, as you may know as the creator of Family Guy. Notice how all the transitions and even the intro is very, very jazzy. He also inspired rapper Jay-Z, who referred himself as the new Sinatra in his hit song Empire State of Mind. Now, his last years were very heartbreaking as he was experiencing breathing problems, high blood pressure, bladder cancer, and eventually dementia. He would forget the lyrics to his most iconic songs. And on May 14, 1998, Frank died from a heart attack. His last words to his wife were, "I'm losing." But to commemorate this death, the Empire State Building turned their lights blue, and the Las Vegas Strip dimmed their lights for about a minute. Now, to conclude, whether you may not like his music or you do like his music, we can all agree that he has a living legacy among societies today, whether it's modern musicians or old souls like myself. As Bill Clinton said on the day of his death, today, I think every American would need to smile and realize he really did it his way. Thank you.